Okay, so in this video we're going to be going through some examples of how to simplify ratios. We're going to just do some basic ones, but also the ones where they ask you to simplify it in the form of 1 ... and things like that. Okay, so simplifying is actually really easy to do once you get the hang of it. It's a bit like, I guess, simplifying fractions. So if we start with the first one, we need to think of a number that can go into both 15 and 10. So if you think about times tables, if you think about the 5 times table, you have 15 and 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 5. Okay, and then 15 divided by 5 will give us 3 on the left, and 10 divided by 5 is 2, so it gives us the ratio of 3 to 2. Okay, so for B, same thing, think of what number could go into both of them. So they've both got zeros on the end, which tells me that I can divide both sides by 10 to start off with. Okay, so 120 divided by 10 is 12. 180 divided by 10 is 18. Okay, then I look at 12 and 18 to see if they've got another number in common. So 2 can go into both of those, so divide by 2, which gives us 6 and 9. Okay, and then 3 goes into both of those. Okay, so that can then simplify to 2 and 3. Okay, now the 3 ones are no different. It's exactly the same. Obviously, it's just now you've got 3 numbers instead of just 2. So again, 4 would go into all of those. So I'm going to divide by 4 first. So it's going to give me 2 ... 4 ... 8. And then 2 still goes into all of those, so I can then divide by 2, which gives us 1, 2, and 4. Okay, and that's it, because there's no other number other than 1 that goes into all of those. Okay, just keep simplifying because it does need to be simplified fully. You can't just leave it at this stage. Okay, the next one's a bit weird because we've got a decimal here. So actually what I'm going to start off with is trying to get rid of the decimal first. Once I've done that, I can then do a similar thing to what I did for part C. So if I multiply everything by 10, that would mean that this decimal will not be a decimal anymore, okay, because 1.6 times 10 would give us 16, 3 times 10 is 30, 2 times 10 is 20. Okay, and then from there we can then work out what goes into all of those. So easiest number would be 2. Okay, so 30 divided by 2 is 15, 8 and 10. Okay, and there are no other numbers that go into all of those, so that is my final answer. Okay, so it is bigger than this one here, but that is okay because we didn't want the decimal there. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over. We're now going to do the practice with 1 to n. Now all it means is that whichever side, sometimes they do write it the other way around, so just make sure you read the question. But for this one, we want the left hand side to be a 1, and the right hand side will be a decimal. It's allowed to be a fraction, whatever you want. Okay, so for the first one, we want to have a 1 on this left hand side. So for that to happen, I need to divide 2 by 2 because that will give me 1. Okay, ratios are like fractions. Whatever you do to one side, you do have to do to the other side as well. Okay, which is 5 over 2. Now you can write that as a decimal, so that would be 2.5. Okay, so normally with ratios we don't like decimals, but for this case we're allowed them. So you're allowed either option. Now there will be some decimals that might be like a third. You want to leave it as a fraction because that as a decimal would be 0.3 recurring, which isn't very nice to write down. Okay, so the next one, again, I want the 1 to be on the left hand side, so I need to divide 10 by 10, which means I need to divide this by 10 as well, which gives me 12 divided by 10. Now just back to fractions, I can simplify that fraction, so 2 goes into both of those. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I could leave it like this, or I can write this as a decimal, which would be 1.2. Okay, and the last one, exactly the same thing, so we want 1 here, so we divide by 6 on both sides. Okay, the first bit I would always just write it as a fraction first, then see if I can simplify it. So 3 goes into both of those. So 9 divided by 3 is 3, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So it could be this. Or we can write it as a decimal, which would be 1.5.